I asked a room full of smart, ambitious professionals to rate how important relationship building is to their careers right now. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, the answers came back 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I asked a follow up question. How does it actually show up in your day to day? My favorite response: actual importance 10, how I'm treating it 3, because we could see ourselves in that answer. It may seem like that gap between knowing relationships matter and then actually building them is an issue of willpower, discipline, or follow through, but it's actually more interesting than that. So, in this week's episode, I'm going to share the important difference between relationship building and networking so you can close that gap and create more momentum in your career. Hi, I'm Laverne McKinnon. This is Moonshot Mentor. If something at work changed that you really didn't want to change, I am so sorry. And I'm really glad that you found your way here, because this is where we talk about what happened and how to figure out what comes next without feeling like you're throwing spaghetti against the wall. If you want more of these conversations, you can always subscribe. And if something here resonates, please reach out because I would love to hear your story. All right, let's jump in to figuring out what is really going on with relationship building. Here's the hard truth. We build relationships reactively. We only reach out when we need something, like a referral, an introduction, a favor, a job, an investment, an opportunity to pitch. And then we fumble the ask, not knowing how assertive to be, or we over-index on small talk. We feel like imposters despite our knowledge, training, and experience. The problem is not the ask. The problem is your timing. When you reach out before you have an ask, the whole dynamic changes. You're no longer a transaction. You are a person. What you might not realize is that relationship building is not networking. Networking implies a transaction, but with better branding. Relationship building is different. It's deciding in advance who matters to your work and your life and getting on their radar. So that shift in framing, it makes the energy of the outreach about building rapport. You're not trying to extract something. You're trying to meet someone and build a mutually beneficial relationship that doesn't have an immediate timeline. It's so simple, right? But why don't we do it? I've had versions of this conversation with myself and a lot of clients. And the reasons people stall on relationship building tend to cluster around roughly the same 5 things. Now, you might recognize a few of these as your own. The first and most prominent is the fear of getting it wrong. When the fear of a bad outcome feels bigger than the cost of no outcome, doing nothing feels like the better, smarter, wiser, safer choice. But silence does not advance your career. One client said, if I do it wrong, I'm going to sabotage a potential relationship before I even have a chance to have one with that person. This is paralysis masquerading as caution. You know this. There is no perfectly worded email that guarantees a response. There's no flawless DM that's going to remove all risk. And there's no single phone call that converts a stranger into your bestie. Practice courage over perfection. The second block is waiting for the right moment. That's me. I'm always waiting for the right moment. Another person described the patterns as this. I love sending emails when I feel like I've just had a win and I'm like, yeah, let's go. But on days when I've had a setback, I put that off and I wait for the magical day to arrive when the sun is shining on me and no one can say no. I find this so relatable. If you're only reaching out from a place of momentum and confidence, you're leaving most of your calendar year on the table. Relationships get built in the ordinary weeks, in the in-between moments, in the days when you reach out anyway. Third reason, never having your ducks in a row. This one is so sneaky because it sounds responsible. I'm just being thorough. I want to have something to offer. I want to be ready. But ready for what exactly? A first email isn't a pitch, it's an introduction. You don't need a portfolio, a deck, or a fully formed ask. You need a sentence or two and a reason you thought about this person. Here's a real life example. I got a cold outreach from someone over LinkedIn who wanted to just Zoom for 15 minutes to swap stories from the front lines as grief workers. There was no ask to speak, to volunteer, to review something, but we wound up meeting and we shared enough information that we've agreed to chat again down the road. So you are reaching out early as part of getting your ducks in a row. And then fourth, believing every reach is secretly transactional. This one hit me hard. In a recent conversation, someone said, I feel like there's always an ask, Laverne. I don't know. There's always something. They're not wrong. Eventually, most professional relationships do involve an ask of some kind. That's how collaboration works. But eventually, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. The goal of early relationship building isn't to pretend you're never going to need something from someone. It's to build enough of a real connection that when the ask comes, on either side, it lands in a context of mutual trust. And that context takes time, which is why you start before you need it. And then finally, needing a reason to reach out. So you don't need an excuse, you need a sentence. And that sentence can be easy in the form of a low-hanging fruit request. So something like, we haven't met, but so-and-so speaks so highly of you. I'd love to grab 5 minutes to learn more about what you're working on. Or if you have no mutual connection at all, you can take a humorous approach by making the problem the solution. We don't know each other and we have absolutely no one in common, but I'd love to hear more about what you're working on. It is amazing how owning the elephant in the room can create rapport. Here's a practical version of all of this. Start with a very short list of people that you want to build a relationship with. People whose work you respect, whose path intersects with yours, who you genuinely would enjoy getting to know. Now, some of these can be pie in the sky names. Some of them might be just, people that you haven't connected with for a long time and just want to rebuild that connection. Be honest and truthful, and then just reach out to one of them this week. Oh, phone calls, by the way, are making a comeback. People are less inundated with them than they were 6 years ago. So a short call can actually do more relationship work in 15 minutes than months of email threads. And DMs are working too, more than you might think. So pick one person from your list, or make the list right now if you don't have one. Write them a 3-sentence note. The first sentence introduces you or reminds them of who you are. The second sentence says something specific and genuine about why you thought of them. And the third could be an ask so small it barely counts, like 5 minutes, a quick question, a resource swap, or simply a note of respect or appreciation. Bottom line, if relationship building is a 7, 8, 9, or 10 on your scale of importance, take one teeny tiny step today. Make the list, even if it's just one name. If it's not a priority, then give yourself a permission slip to stop thinking about it. Just put a note in your calendar for 3 months down the road to revisit whether it's the right time for you to invest in relationship building. You are not a transaction. You are a person. Relationship building allows you to be that person. If you would like a little bit more support as you sort through what's changing in your career, you can join Solid Ground. It's my membership community where we take this work a little deeper with monthly lessons, live coaching, journal prompts, guided meditations. You can get more information and join at moonshotmentor.substack.com. Thank you to Lauren Deacon for handling everything with Moonshot Mentor, and Carol Langham for the editing and for the social. And thank you for being here, truly. Give yourself permission to be where you are at this moment in time. You're right where you're supposed to be. I will see you next week.